Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. Couple of plugs here during Cleveland week because we love to hate Cleveland, but we love Cleveland. Everybody knows that. The Maryland Lottery is presenting us out on our crab cake tour. Maryland Lottery Raven scratch-offs we're going to be giving away on Friday at Mama's on the half shell. Been a lucky batch. Had a couple $20 winners a couple weeks ago as we were down at the Coco's Pub. We've been a lot of places here with the Oyster Tour as well. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, 1-800-CLEAN-WATER, make my well water clean, just like the oysters keep the bay oxygenated and clean in the Chesapeake Bay. Our friends at Jiffy Lube Multicare putting Luke out on the road. And, of course, Curio Wellness, keeping me happy in my move product. We always encourage people to use cannabis responsibly, but more than that, get educated on it. Our friends at Curio Wellness and Far and Daughter help us remain educated on all things, including this incredible move product. It helped my back. A couple months ago, I did a wild thing. I got into the Sammy Hagar tour when he was doing Van Halen 5150. I saw a few shows. I missed out on this Homedale, New Jersey show. Everybody knows my back's a little wonky. And I got in the car, and I took the family roadster out to Ohio, sort of like a Pretender song, I'm not going back to Ohio. But I went back, and I have a lot of friends in Ohio. I catch up with them during Cleveland week. You'll hear Munch Bishop this week. You won't hear Michael Regai because he couldn't join me. You won't hear Dave Zastidal. He's had a little eye surgical procedure, didn't want to come on camera. I told him to get better. But then I have old friends of mine who were my radio producer a quarter of a century ago, as featured in the documentary No One Listens, Everyone Hears. Bernard Bokenyi is my original gangster of Cleveland rock and roll, sports, formerly of sports because he's kind of quit on the sports thing, and a longtime sports producer, sports radio program director, I should say, Portland, Oregon, all over the place. But he's back in Cleveland. We went together to Blossom. What a beautiful facility that was. I haven't had you on the show since then. To see my friend Thomas Dolby, who did come and claim his box finally for his birthday 2 weeks ago. We welcome Bernard Bokenyi back on the program from Western Clevelandia, where the football team still stinks, but the baseball team gave it a nice run. You would admit that, Bernie.
They did, Nestor, and I still have my badge right here from our Totally Tubular Festival. It's sitting on my desk. I want to frame this. So thank you again for that great night. And yes, the Guardians did give us a little bit to celebrate this year, so I'll take that. I've been waiting for 29 years for an NFL franchise. Eventually, we'll get one here, but we did have a good baseball season at least.
Well, I mean, not only are you like just the Cleveland guy, and you've got all this complexity that I have, that I understand in friendship in regard to your wife and your family and the things you want to do in your life and the way you work, but you gave up on the sports thing after doing it for almost 20 years, right? Like you got paid,
Yeah.
compensated, you went to Super Bowls, you went to games, you covered that, you did all the work that we did here, and you found this other life, and you're trying to figure out, and I know this on a professional level with you, where sports is in your life as a Cleveland native, proud Cleveland human as you are. You're now back in Cleveland. You're going to have a family in Cleveland one day. Like all of this, what what does your wisdom bring? Like, what will you teach your child about this, and what would you say about it, having done this and wanted to do nothing else with your life other than be maybe a comedian, but a Cleveland sports guy is what you are?
I can remember, Nestor, walking into a locker room the first time, 1999, walking into a Cleveland baseball locker room and seeing Jim Thome, a guy who for the previous 8 years I had idolized. He came up as a rookie in the 92 season, and he's standing in his locker room, and I've got a credential, right? And you know the feeling. And I'm allowed to go up and say hello to Jim Thome, and he can't tell me to go away. Wow. I still have goosebumps remembering that day. I specifically remember exactly what Jim Thome's locker was. So you're right. For 16 years, I got to live the dream. I got to stick microphones in faces. I covered the Packers for 4 years. I got to go to Lambeau Field. I had one weekend I went to a Saturday game at Notre Dame Stadium, a Sunday game at Lambeau Field. I mean, those are the things that most sports fans would dream of. Being away from it for 10 years, though, Nestor, I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all. And specifically when you look at situations like here in Cleveland, with a quarterback that was accused of over 24 sexual assaults. I would have been fired so many times by now in Cleveland if I'd have been saying on the air what I really feel about the quarterback, about the owner. And I'm glad to be away where I can think and say those things and I don't have a gag on my opinions. And I think you can relate to a lot of that. It's a shame because there are so many good people in the NFL. Not just the guys who are playing the game, but there's a lot of good people. When you go into a locker room, when you go into a building, you work with, you get to meet trainers and communications team and media people. And there's a lot of really good people. And the same as far as broadcasters and people that you'll never know of. But then there are Deshaun Watsons and Jimmy Haslams, and you just get to a point for me at least where I said I don't miss that, and I'm glad just being on my couch, getting to watch the games. And honestly, Nestor, now my wife will tell you, I laugh at them. I laugh every time Deshaun Watson threw an interception. I really did, and it was fun for me to see them just be so bad this year. And finally, they have a draft pick. In the first round next year. So I'm already looking at mock drafts. I've been looking for 3 weeks already scouting, and I'm trying to think of hopefully we get the number 1 pick and trade away Travis Hunter to somebody who will give us 5 picks. So that's where my mindset's at right now.
So much of the sports landscape's changed. And, I had Daryl Ryder on this week and I had Munch on this week talking about the stadium issue in Cleveland, that the
Oh,
football team is trying to get a dome built down by the airport in Brook Park, where I've attended some ballet, I will admit. And like, it's Modell all over again for your fan base in regard to, I know we have varying opinions on Art. Art was a good citizen here. I think Art was a good citizen for a long, long time in Cleveland and didn't get any help from the politicians. Everything else got built. Now that you see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they had the induction again last week. Cool in the Gang. Put sticks in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Jan Weather, you
yes.
creep.
And
Uh,
Tommy and Dennis need to make up already. They have, but Tommy and Dennis need to be up there. JY's got to be up there, right? We got to have
I
all of
don't
them.
need it to be fantasy land. I just need it to be right. So, but I'll say this. The Gund Arena and the remodeling there and what LeBron has
Mm-hmm.
represented for that, right? They had a political convention, a couple political conventions. So the baseball stadium now gets everything from at one point Jimmy Buffett when he was alive to Bruce Springsteen to
Billy
I saw
Joel's been
Sting and
there.
Billy
Elton
Joel was
John.
there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stevie, it was a Stevie Nicks, whatever it was. We've all like lived through this, and I have reported on it to be professionally targeted by the likes of Chad Steele and Greg Bader, and to be called a bad guy by the Orioles organization after watching Angelos run this thing where you had to play kayfabe or you couldn't work at Masson. Even on a night when Mike
Mm-hmm.
Flanagan committed suicide, the broadcasters weren't allowed to admit it on the air because they were being told they couldn't say it, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
You're being told what you can and can't say from a reality perspective. Everybody that works at the Baltimore Sun right now is experiencing that with this Sinclair group down here and the regional sports networks. They were involved in that. So the media is so topsy turvy that at least people, when they come here, they know they're getting me and I'm not getting paid off or bought off by anybody to pitch anything I don't believe in or can't challenge. But that's not really what you and I bought into sports media, sports radio. There were opinions everywhere. I mean, how they put Rush Limbaugh on the map, right? Like somebody that never spoke a true word in his life, right? Like, and idolize all that, which begat Trump, right? And we're into that next week here. And by God, in your state and in Pennsylvania, anybody can hear my
Yeah,
voice,
yeah.
vote sane. But I would just say that the sports lane of reality media, which Hard Knocks was supposed to be, it's like the Real Housewives and some of these organizations, from the Dan Snyders through whatever the Cowboys are at this point and whatever the Shad Khans are going to be. And there really is a royalty part of this that I have
Mm-hmm.
seen with Rubenstein here. I mean, Rubenstein's done nothing except make a lot of money. Like, that's all I know about him. He knows how to make money. I've heard funeral home. I heard all these stories, right? He buys stuff. He wants to be famous, obviously, wants to be known as a nice guy, wants to be as famous as he is rich. Beware that. I mean, like, just in a general sense as to what we're getting here from this and what the level of accountability, where you have a guy running for president that closes down a McDonald's, pretends to be working there, shoots fake videos basically, and is trying to run for president. Whatever Jimmy Haslam is going to bake up on the inside of whatever the thing is, I've just moved beyond where the reality TV stops. and the fans that can't tell the difference between kayfabe and why the Dodgers are in and Yankees are in the World Series this week, and why teams like the Orioles aren't and have. You wouldn't go to the casino and gamble with the odds that they have. You wouldn't.
With the situation with the Browns trying to get another new stadium here, Nestor, and you touched on a lot. Look, you and I have talked about Art Modell. Yeah, he didn't quite get what the other teams in the league got, but what Jimmy Haslam, current Browns owner, has. He has a stadium that was built just 25 years ago through our tax dollars. We fought the NFL. You guys got the team. That's great. We kept the name, we kept the colors, and we had to build a brand new stadium with our own tax dollars, which we did. For those who don't know, the city of Cleveland is not exactly in great shape financially and hasn't been like many American cities. Now, there's been great strides made in the healthcare community, but the city of Cleveland could still use a lot of funding when it comes to the infrastructure, when it comes to schools, when it comes to housing. There are blocks of empty plots of land within a few feet of the Cleveland Clinic because homes have been raised over the last 2 decades. So the city of Cleveland does not have money to build another new stadium for the NFL. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, Nestor, on
That gets used
August,
10 times a year, by the way, right? Like, so all the
yes,
bourgeois that I bought in on to get these things built here to be thrown out of as a media member while they move the Kevin Byrne press box and make it a little mini house up in the corner while they throw
mm-hmm.
the media out and say, we don't have room for you anymore. One of the many faux excuses they use to try to end my career and my business and my reputation. But it is an amazing thing how much money these billionaires get in a way that no other citizen, no other business, no other thought for any other municipality would it be considered. But in Cleveland, where they've lost teams, and in Baltimore, where they've lost teams, they feel differently than they do about it, let's say in Oakland, as an example, right?
Well, you look at St. Louis and Oakland, they both lost the NFL, and they both, as cities, have said, see ya,
San
goodbye.
Diego, San Diego.
San Diego. And I'll tell you right now, I want to tell a little bit of a background here because I live in Bay Village, Ohio, like you said, Western Ohio. Nestor, on August 6th, there were 3 tornadoes that came through my town. And there were, I think, at least 5 that came through Cleveland proper, August 6th. I was without power for a week. Now, I'm very fortunate, no damage to my home. The morning of August 7th, one day after 5 tornadoes ripped through Cleveland and Cuyahoga County, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, what does he do? He maybe a day after he had a chance to say, "Hey, we're gonna open up some community centers for people who don't have air conditioning and electricity, or we're gonna donate some money to cleanups." What does Jimmy Haslam do? He releases renderings for a new stadium that he wants us to spend $1 billion on in Brook Park, Ohio. That's what Jimmy Haslam's all about. Jimmy Haslam is a lying scumbag. I'm sorry. I can say that now because I'm not employed by the Cleveland Browns. I'm not employed by Good Karma or Odyssey, who are under that umbrella. Competing companies, by the way, who are under the same radio deal, so they can't say anything bad about Jimmy Haslam. He is a lying scumbag. A day after tornadoes ripped through our town, he says, I need $1 billion to build another new stadium. Just 25 years after you already built a brand new stadium. And not even a decade ago, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars renovating that stadium, which is now called Huntington Field because their first sponsor didn't go well. That's a whole other story. So that's where we are at, Nestor, with our sports realities. Now, I'm guilty
That's
because
without
I
the
still
quarterback or anything on the field, or
exactly.
like literally that's the state of Bob Irsay's ownership. No
Mm-hmm.
matter whether you have Burt Jones or Bill Troop or Art Schlichter, to bring another old Ohio friend in, dotting the I and the O, and the S, amongst other things. But this tradition of scumbaggery,
Yep.
it comes at a cost when And I would say this to you. And by the way, Bernard Bokenyi is my longtime producer. I just want to give a shout out in the middle of this. I want to take 1 minute to say that Bernard did the job along with Cliff Saunders, and Justin Hess and Matt Hagan, great humans that I've kept in my life all these years later. But Ray Bachman, our executive producer, is fighting cancer. This week we have put together the Oyster Tour. I went down to Mike's and Riva last month when Ray was doing well. He's in the battle. I'm texting with him every day. So keep him in your thoughts, but he has a GoFundMe. If anybody wants to help Ray, it's out there. Got to say that without me busting up in front of you. But the baseball side of this, Bernard, is that I watched your baseball team. Now, you still are a Guardians fan, or no? Yes, yes.
I am. I mean, and I still try to watch as much as I can. But Nestor, I'm detached, honestly, for my own health. Like with baseball, I can't watch every game anymore. I just don't have it in me. I don't have any issue with people who do, but I don't have 3 hours every day. I watch the playoffs, but I couldn't name you their entire 25-man roster, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But I enjoyed the season. I went to a few games.
Your
But
level of engagement with the Cleveland Indians in 1995 through was insane, right? Like knowing the A-ball players going out to Arizona, you did the whole run,
I
right?
could name it Lofton Bell, Baerga, Murray, Sorrento. Yeah, I could name the whole lineup, the whole pitching staff, absolutely. And for a good 20 years, I could.
See,
Um,
that's the baseball thing. What you're saying to me is the Baltimore experience that we've had just awful. And I don't know if you read my letter to David Rubenstein or not. I hope you read it. And as a friend of mine, and as a baseball observer, and as a guy that has witnessed the Angelos atrocities here, on top of the Haslam and Modell atrocities in your community, and from Dan Snyder straight on through, right? We'll just go. The guy out in the own the Clippers, and just these awful people that have been
don't
involved
forget
in
Jerry
ownership.
Richardson with the Panthers. He was
Of
another
course, but
scumbag.
yeah, like there's a long, the road is littered with scumbags, right? But for me, with the baseball team here and your baseball team being a little bit of a North Star to say, well, if we're going to operate like a small market team, and a limited payroll, and we don't get to shop with Juan Soto or Corbin Burns or Blake Snell. We're only going to shop, well, when we guys give us friends in Baerga and Loft, and all those guys gave hometown deals early on when that was a thing back in the 90s, pre Boris, when we don't give hometown deals. We have the situation here. We had 10,000 empty seats for playoff games. I monitored your $35 ALCS tickets for the classic. The game three was like a classic, and it was a
Yeah.
$20 get in for an ALCS game because I was monitoring all this because I'm worried about the health of baseball. I'm worried about sexy young 40-year-old guys like you, 40 somethings, where you're still young enough to like fall in love with it again, and slow enough and sloppy enough to go take your kids and drink some beer and have some hot dogs and fall in and keep score again. And maybe you're thinking that way as you're starting a family and like all of that. You get a lot of money left and time left in you for loving baseball, but it's kind of got to love you back because it's a hell of a commitment that when you're not 10 years old and exchanging Andre Thornton and Joe Charbonneau baseball cards, Len Barker cards, that you're engaged. It's a full-time job to be a baseball fan, to pay attention to it around the year. It goes away around this time of the year. But as I've said to the dude who completely mistreated me and blew me off from David Rubenstein's group, the new people. I thought meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It was a Who song in there. Um, the first thing I said to him is there's been a lot of trauma here. You know what I mean? Like not just Nasty
Mhm.
Nestor and Free the Birds. Free the Birds was a thing because of the trauma. It wasn't something I made up.
No, it was
Like,
your reaction. It was genuine.
yeah, yeah, like I'm a citizen. I'm here. I'm a member of an America voting next week because my cousin could play shortstop 50 years ago. It's the reason my family came here was baseball. That's how important it is to me. So being thrown out the last 18 years, just understand that I'm not the only one. Call Terry Crowley, call Mike Bordick, call BJ Suroff, call Cal Ripken, call Brooks Robinson's family and ask them how it was around here for 30 years. And to your point, the Odysseys, the 98 Rocks, they can't say, they could never say anything. I was the
No.
only one that could speak truth, and I spoke truth, and I still do. And that's going away. They've tried to eliminate me, have me, Khashoggi'd as a media member, just gone, vanish, disappear me from Super Bowls too. But the thing that's amazing to me is that the baseball thing and the resiliency of it, and what a great game it is, all that George Will, Ken Burns, baseball, Americana, and all that. I guess I believe in all of that until I see 10,000 empty seats in my own stadium and tickets are $10 and nobody wants to go to a playoff game. And they're bitching that the game started in daylight, right? Like, stop. Stop with the excuses. You weren't interested. You just weren't. They're like, and I would say the same thing for your community, that the buy-in that people like you and I had, pie in the sky. Art Modell broke your heart. Bob Ursay broke my heart. Peter Angelos broke everything here, like a bull in a china shop. Like Daniel Snyder broke the Washington football thing. That was really something. I mean, like the way the Browns were something, the way the Orioles were something with Cal Ripken, and Camden Yards got built on the back of all of that. It's been a broken promise from the days of Papa Joe Chevalier writing a fan bill of rights 35 years ago to where we are as communities, where like Jimmy Haslam's the latest scumbag. We're worried that David Rubenstein isn't. We hope he isn't. Or Michael Arrighetti isn't. My experiences with both of those guys have not been good. And I'm 5 minutes into this. And they're probably not going to get better because they only get richer and more powerful and more Teflon and more insulated. I mean, Bishotti was a regular guy 20 years ago, pissing in my condo, drinking Miller Lights out of a soft cooler with me in my house strumming my guitar. That was in 2006. In 2024, I'm no longer a media member anymore. It's amazing. Like,
Money
so I
corrupts people. It just does.
so I watch all of this and I think to myself, the baseball thing, the sports thing, people want to love it, but do they want to pay for it, Bernie? That's where I am when baseball now is out on its own nipple. And I've heard from three different people in Cleveland. Nobody in Cleveland wants to give Jimmy Haslam money. There's no Brandon Scotts and Wes Moore jumping in front of that. There's no Larry Hogan's and Angela Alsterbrooks. These are all of our politicians here, by the way. And Johnny O, real time. None of them are jumping in front of the Jimmy Haslam bus and saying, we need to give this man more money.
No.
Here, the money just came up from the earth, a billion two, to protect these stadia. And I go back to this with Rubenstein, and I'll let you jump on your soapbox because you're great at that too. Rubenstein, the thing I see from him for the first 6 months here is the honeymoon and the Johnny Bravo, and he's got his media company creating fictional fantasy videos that are no different than Donald Trump at the drive-thru in McDonald's last week. The thing with Rubenstein for me is the plan and where it is and where this money's going and what your real intentions are, because they're all going to make money when they sell it and they all want to win. But I've seen how your operation is run in Cleveland. And the real story is, where is the money coming from to pay Gunnar Henderson $60 million a year, or Juan Soto, or anybody that you want? Because the cable bill's over with. And it feels to me like baseball's gone to hockey now, where they're going to have to go hand-to-hand combat and they're going to have to generate their revenue. And baseball has been living off a titty as long as I've been alive to some degree, with free agency and cable television and stadia that began in the 80s. That it's a reckoning in regard to the industry, I think, that's coming for baseball.
We've seen this for generations now, Nestor. Revenue sharing has been off in baseball. It's been non-existent. Yeah, the NFL, the one thing that they've always had going for them, we know, is they've said, okay, we're going to treat every team equally, whether it's revenue sharing, whether it's the way the draft is done, reverse order. We're going to do everything to make sure that Green Bay, Wisconsin can compete with the New York Giants. And in fact, Green Bay has been tremendously much better than the Giants. Baseball's had that problem for so many generations. What's happening here in Cleveland, I was stunned when the Guardians signed Jose Ramirez to an extension in the recent years. I was stunned. I mean, they traded Francisco Lindor over to the Mets. We saw him in the NLCS. And that's been just, the last 25 years, the way things have always gone. Every time a homegrown talent got up to free agency, he was gone. I mean, Albert Bell left for the White Sox. Jim Thome was with the Phillies.
It's probably why
Manny,
the Rays have no fans.
yeah, absolutely. Manny Ramirez is more known as a Boston Red Sox, and yet I remember his rookie year vividly. Watching in right field, just in awe of this young kid who was kind of out there. Sometimes didn't run the base pads real good. But
I mean, the truth
baseball,
about the A's leaving Oakland is they they didn't want to support it. Like there was no money there to ever make it good. Which is what Angelo said to me if the city here split and DC ever got a team. Angelo said it would be like San Francisco and Oakland. It would be unsustainable because there wouldn't be enough money. And now the Orioles are the little sister in the relationship. And all of that mass and money went to the Angelos family. All of it. Every nickel they drank from all of it. I don't know whether they pissed it away on horses or whether they're living high. I don't know anything about it. I just know it was a lot of money that the Rubenstein people are going to have to go fight for. And they're going to have to, and it goes back to my trauma thing. Like, if you want to fix it, you better find the 55-year-old Hispanic guys like me that might want to buy a season ticket if we were treated decent.
yep,
Because I like baseball. And a lot of people don't. And a lot of people are never going to like it in the lacrosse community. And I worry in your community where the Browns get a free pass, the Cavaliers sucked a lot of money out. I think Ohio State sucks money out of Cleveland, right? I mean, they just do
yeah,
based
they do.
on Maryland doesn't suck any money out of Baltimore. Maryland doesn't have any sucking any money out of anything. They're ripping down goalposts down there last week and getting me in trouble on social media for calling it they beat a 3-3 team and ripping down goalposts. You laugh at that in Ohio State. But I would say this, Cleveland and the Guardians, the financial viability of that product in that market with that money, with the white fan base that it appeals to and the over 50, whatever it is, it's been as good as in Baltimore. We're looking at it and saying, well, I would have taken that over the last 30 years if we're a small market team or whatever you're going to call it. But I'm looking at the Orioles and I'm wondering where the possibility is because the bar is a lot lower than it was when John Stedman and I walked in there in 1992 for possibilities for what the franchise can be. And I wonder what baseball can be in places and get reinvented because I see it's it's good in Cleveland, but it's not rich at
It's
all.
not. And what they've been doing the last few years in the ballpark, if you've seen here in Cleveland, Jacobs Field is always remembering. They've taken out seats. The upper deck left field has been taken out for more standing room only seats. The upper deck right field, same thing. They're doing major renovations along the left field line. If you watch the ALCS, you saw that big Guardians tarp down the left field line. That used to be a restaurant. They're turning all these spaces into more open and standing room only seating that appeals to younger people who want to think that they're at a bar when they're really at a baseball game and getting them to pay premium pricing and they can get more standing room only seats in. That's the kind of things that you're going to see more at these ballparks. And Nestor, you've been to every ballpark. I've been to 24 of the current ballparks. And I like going to Dodger Stadium. I like going to Fenway Park. But when you go to Petco Park in San Diego, it's a different vibe. There's all these standing room only places, and there's these hangout spots, and there's
It's like hanging on the lawn at Blossom or Merriweather,
it
right?
is,
Yeah.
and that appeal that you and I had of going to a baseball game, sitting in our seats with our popcorn or Cracker Jack, peanuts, hot dog, whatever.
And needing to see the
It's
strike
fun.
zone and needing to see if
Yeah.
you can't see the strike zone, you're not at the baseball game. I don't know what else there is to say that if you're sitting down the third base or first base line, you're not seeing the strike zone. You're just seeing what the umpire's calling, like literally. And
And people under
and
30 don't get that. They're going to, if they go to baseball games now, they're going to be there with their friends, socialize, and be on their phone and take selfies. That
and
I've
bet
seen it.
$5 on whether Ramirez is going to strike out or hit a home run in this at bat too.
Sure,
That's what they hope.
absolutely,
That's what they hope.
sure. And look, I
They're
play
going to turn it into
dopey.
a bingo parlor. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I look, I've gone to a few games and I've sat there in between innings of scrolling on my phone. I've done it. And I even put a dollar bet on a guy to hit a home run. Sure, it's fun because you can, but I still love the essence of baseball. But it's not like when we were young. I still remember my first game, June of 1989, right field, Cleveland Stadium, walking up and seeing Ken Griffey Jr. as a rookie in center field and seeing the grass. I'll never forget those moments. I don't think an 8, 9 year old kid today has that kind of romanticism with baseball. And the way it's going, though, now, you talked about those 50 and upper guys like us who maybe have disposable income, they're not appealing to us. They're trying to appeal to that 25-year-old who wants to go to the neighborhood bar. That's who they're appealing to now, at least trying
But
to.
that's also not a person that understands the strike zone or cares about the game itself because they're not even
No,
watching the game, let
no,
alone
they couldn't
calling
score the
sports
game.
radio afterward and talking about relief pitching and whatnot. It's a
No.
different engagement point with strategy, with players, with statistics, with the game itself, as opposed to going to the movie but not necessarily being a fan of Tom Cruise.
It's a different experience now, and I feel out of place sometimes. I still have a few ballparks I need to get to, and I've been working on this for 30 plus years. So, as you can relate, I want to get to these few ballparks, but I
Where are you
just
trying to get to? I hope you got Tropicana Field in because you ain't ever going there, right?
oh,
That's
okay.
over.
So I've been to Tropicana and the Marlins, right? I got to be honest, I didn't hate Tropicana Field all that much.
I didn't. I hated the Marlins way worse.
Same here.
Marlins Stadium's just god awful.
Uh,
It's a
the
terrible
yeah,
everything. The only thing good is
everything.
it's near Little Havana and you can get some good food.
I parked in somebody's in front of somebody's house in Little Havana. I couldn't stand the Marlins ballpark when I went there. The game I went to, this was 10 years ago now. Upper deck was closed. So when I go to ballparks now, just as a fan, I like walking around, experiencing, seeing everything. I don't need to worry about a credential, and I can wear my Lionel Richie T-shirt, and I don't care. Upper deck was closed, and the not nice gentleman wouldn't even let me come near the escalator. I said I wanted to go up
Yeah,
and
I
see
was
the
mistreated in
park.
Miami too on my baseball tour in 15. That was one of the places I really was
Yeah.
treated poorly. Bernard Bokenyi is here. He's my longtime executive producer at Sporting News Radio 101 Sports, quarter of a century ago. He is a Clevelander. He is there. So the football team, you are watching them, right? Like you watch the games. You're a professional journalist for 2 decades, sports journalist. But like the Deshaun Watson thing, from the minute it went down, no matter where you were, and I was in West Palm Beach, and Steve Bisciotti was the first time he ran for me. But that was when he was pissed off and popping off to other media members, not to WNST. We were excluded from that media scrum. And so it was 2.5 years ago. That's when the money happened. And he realized, oh my God, I'm going to have to give Lamar guaranteed money. They're all going to get guaranteed money. Haslam isn't even a member of the club, and put his wife out in front of this, all the allegations that are, can't help. Some of them must be true, huh? And then just what kind of a quarterback he's been, and the Joe Flacco thing last year, and Stefanski and Miles, these other guys like Joe Thomas a generation ago, giving like Ernie Banks their entire career to this lousy operation. And you're now finding that it's going to happen again. I mean, I don't know that there's any way around $80 million cap hits the next couple of years, and
There's
what
not.
that means to the good people in the organization who are like, I'm in the prime of my career. Pull a Roger Dorn. I'm not sacrificing my body for these clowns.
What Joe Thomas did was an anomaly. He very proudly wanted to play his entire career in Cleveland. He had a chance, if you recall, to be traded to Denver in the last couple of years of his career, and he was still playing at a high Pro Bowl level, and he said no. He
Take
had a
the
no
Ray
trade
Bork
clause.
deal every time is what I say.
What's going to happen here in Cleveland the next 2 years? You're right, Nestor. They reworked the Deshaun Watson contract, first ever guaranteed contract in NFL history. So Steve Bisciotti was right to be upset about that, just because he didn't want to pay out money. But what they're going to be looking at is dead money in the roster. We saw Amari Cooper get dealt recently here from Cleveland. I expect more to come. I think the conversation they're going to have is with Myles Garrett. He's still in the prime of his career. He's an all-pro. He's a Hall of Fame talent. And does he want to stick here? And I think they need to be honest with him and say the next 2 years are going to be awful. They're going to be as bad as the 1-15 2-year stretch we saw. And you need to be honest with Myles. But it's going to be terrible. But you asked about watching. Look, I still watch the games. Now, I root for them to lose. I want them to lose badly because I want Jimmy Haslam to be frustrated. There was a game earlier this season. Jimmy Haslam had a fan kicked out of the stadium because the fan was mocking him the last few minutes he comes on the field. And I think to myself, my gosh, I'd have been thrown out of that stadium so many times. because Jimmy Haslam deserves to be mocked. And what he did to the rest of the NFL by guaranteeing a contract to a guy at that point who had 24 sexual abuse allegations lodged against him, he gave a guaranteed $250 million contract to that guy. And every NFL owner had every right to be frustrated about that because, yes, that did set a new bar of ridiculousness. And Lamar Jackson wasn't wrong for sitting there and saying, hey, wait, what did he get? I'm better than him. And now you look at Deshaun Watson on the field. It's clear he hasn't given a flip about playing football. He has no chemistry with his receivers. Now he's out for the year. Joe Flacco came in off the street last year, Nestor, had 3 days of practice, and he gets Amari Cooper and David Njoku to the Pro Bowl. And he was sitting in street clothes 3 days before, and Deshaun Watson in 2 years can't develop chemistry with the same guys? Come on. What Jimmy Haslam has done is just a joke. And the next 2 years, the Browns are going to be back to where they were. If I was Kevin Stefanski, I'd want out of here. He'll get a job in a heartbeat if he's made available. He's won the Coach of the Year twice, but they're going to be so bad.
They did sign him with a contract, right?
They did just recently do
Him
an
and Barry, they
extension.
both got money, right?
They did, but
Well, it looked like it was coming together. I've had you on the show every year the last couple of years, and
yeah.
I mean, if he could have played and had jurisprudence on his side, none of the above though. And I don't think there was ever any promise that it was going to kind of quietly go away. He had another suit he had to settle 5 weeks ago.
They'd be a playoff team this year if they'd have kept Joe Flacco. I was so disappointed when they let Joe Flacco go to Indianapolis, and that's going to pain you to see him in a Colts helmet. But why? Joe Flacco led this team to the playoffs. It wasn't Deshaun Watson. It was Flacco. I don't care that he's a veteran and he's not 24 years old. Joe Flacco would have this team in the playoffs right now. And you look at these decisions. You've hitched to this Deshaun Watson train, which has finally come to rail now. He's probably played his last down for the Browns and maybe in the league entirely, now that he's out for the year. I just don't understand it. That they made a mistake. They continue to just say, well, he's our quarterback. He's our quarterback. He's shown no interest at all in learning this offense and having an identity. And I'm at the point now where I want them to lose, absolutely, get as many draft picks because it's going to be painful. You might as well take advantage of this draft coming up that you've got a once in a generation talent like Travis Hunter who plays both ways at Colorado and wants to in the NFL. He may actually be able to pull it off. And if you can be a team that can trade that value, as we saw the Bears trade away what the Panthers turned into Bryce Young, and now their fortunes may be turning a little bit in Chicago. So I want the Browns to lose, but they're going to be hard to watch the next 2 years because, they're going to be paying Deshaun Watson something like $70-80 million the next 2 years, whether he's here or not. And that's a tough pill to swallow.
Bernard Bokenyi is my longtime producer and my friend out in the land of Cleve. And, the Yankees, Dodgers, anything you want to say about that? Just watching on the outside from the Cleveland side. I mean, that's the thing with the Garden of Eden you talk about, the original sin. Is just that's where I am as a baseball fan, as an Oriole fan, as a journalist, as somebody that says the state's giving this guy $600 million. We haven't met him yet. David Rubenstein, he's been here 5 minutes. How is he going to run it? And how's it going to be? Because I've seen how it's been the last 30 years. There's a point in it watching the Guardians and watching this baseball thing to say, is any of this sustainable and what will the model be? Because Cleveland, St. Louis, a couple places, it feels like even Tampa as a model, say what you want about it, and the place is empty all the time. Now the roof's ripped off it. That's not good for the community having 8,000 people at the ballpark, nobody there. I mean, it's like the Miami thing. Like, how does that help anybody? If you're going to be a good citizen and a good community member and be involved in this, show me the plan. Give me the North Star I can believe in for baseball itself, let alone for the Orioles, because the Dodgers and the Yankees are spending this money. We know they're going to do that. Tell me how Gunnar Henderson's not going to be there 5 years from now. And, that's an industry issue. It really is.
Too many of these owners have made their money in business, whatever the line of business. They're competing against other companies. The Dodgers, the Yankees, they're not competing against the Dodgers, the Guardians, the Rays. They're partners. It's not good for the Yankees to be just what they are. You need the Tampa Bay Rays to succeed. The Oakland A's leaving Oakland was not a good thing. And that was the worst ballpark in baseball. You were there many times. It was awful. Now, it used to be halfway decent in the 80s. But the Yankees need all these teams to succeed. They're not competing against each other, maybe on the field, but when it comes to revenue, they're partners. And I just don't ever feel that the Yankees and the Dodgers and some even the Cubs and the Red Sox have viewed other teams as partners. Whereas the NFL at least has got that. Nobody hears the name the Green Bay Packers and says little old Green Bay.
Well,
They
we don't
think of
sit and even talk about football as Deshaun Watson. Can they afford a player? Like,
mm-hmm,
right? It's the first question in baseball is we can't afford Juan Soto. You don't ever think that. I mean, and even in LeBron's case in Cleveland, like it
no.
wasn't about affording players in basketball. It's about making them feel like they can come and win and you can pay them. But the baseball thing's out of whack. And I think the fans here are going to see that. And that's part of the trauma. I mean, that's part of what I'm talking about. That give me a reason to be bought in.
I'm hoping that you get that reason, Nestor, because first off, I've been to Baltimore enough. You know this. There is a lot of passion, and you have that passion for the Orioles. I mean, just think about the precedent that you all set with, with Camden Yards. You revolutionized the sport with your stadium. Everybody saw that and said, "That's what we need." You guys have got such a history. Heck, Babe Ruth is from Baltimore, so I want to see every team succeed. But think about the Super Bowl. Anybody would watch the Packers against, oh, let's just say the Dolphins, but would anybody watch the Miami Marlins and the now, I guess, Sacramento Athletics? Would anybody watch that if that was the World Series this year? Probably
Well, I mean,
not.
it's like when the Tampa Lightning are playing in the Stanley Cup and they're playing Calgary or whatever, right? Like it becomes very, very not even regional. It's hyper local, and
Yeah.
baseball is hyper local, and that's why this Dodger Yankee thing. It's like are Guardians and Orioles fans and Cardinals fans going to watch it hating both teams? I don't know. I don't really hate the
No.
Dodgers, but either way, Yankees, I can get down with hating the Yankees. I'll be honest with that. That's why I was rooting for the Cleveland Guardians. Bernard Bokenyi was too. He is my Cleveland friend. Any parting shot for me, man? It was good to see you and see some rock and roll with you. I'd always wanted to get out to Blossom, and it was a bucket list thing. And the minute I walked in, especially with you, it wouldn't have been the same because I went the next night and it wasn't the same, but it was great. But that venue is just that's a treasure. That venue, it's beautiful.
I agree. I tell you, Nestor, in the last 10 years being away from the sports, I'm much more into music. In fact, I've got my CD tower to my right over here. I just got a shipment yesterday in the US Postal Service of 6 new CDs. I still buy my CDs. I still love my music. I go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame all the time. I'm much more invested in the live music, my wife and I. There's better value, even though concert tickets are not cheap. We saw Back to the Future, the musical this year. I appreciated that a lot more than I would have sitting at a Browns game. I haven't gone to a Browns game in 18 years,
You know what's
17 years.
amazing, dude, is we've thousands and thousands of dollars we have not spent. I mean, I would have been on a plane in Tampa, in a hotel room in Tampa, buying tickets for my wife. My wife always bought tickets on the road. We always bought tickets at home. I had 2 tickets. I had 4 tickets for every game the first 24 years. And PSLs. I mean, not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of
I
dollars.
believe it.
I've called it millions because I bought so many other tickets from the team on behalf of keeping people out of fights in Section 513, people, sponsors, friends, fans, listeners, road trips, planes, Wembley, 2 Super Bowl, like the whole deal. And I think to myself, if I never spend another nickel on baseball or football or hockey, I'm gonna have a lot of money left. And even seeing Sting last week for $46 down at MGM and getting a late ticket and having a great seat, where the money is going. And also when I'm at these concerts, $18 beers and saying, how thirsty am I? And I'm thinking to myself, how thirsty would I be at a football game or a baseball game if I paid 280 to be there to see a blowout or to see a load management game where I come and I come down to see the Cavaliers and the star player comes to town and doesn't play.
It's a different reality, but I think we all have to look at and prioritize what is important to us. I still watch the Browns. I'm not going to lie. I've watched just about every snap, but I laugh now. But I'm part of the problem because I'm still watching. I spend the money on the YouTube Red Zone channel. So I'm still part of the problem. But Oh, I definitely am more into the music scene myself now, Nestor, and it was great to get to see you this summer, and we definitely need to do it again sometime.
I keep telling my wife, how good that show was. Wang Chung, man, everybody was down. Get down in Cleveland. That's a rock and roll capital of the universe right there. You got your totally tubular backstage. That I
Don't forget.
began this with David Lee Roth before because I was late getting here, and I said to you, I don't feel tardy. I didn't do that on the airs. I did it. So I would say to you that the David Lee Roth, my favorite one, and this is the Yankee Rose, and it's not just I'll have a glazed donut. Not just that one. My favorite one is give that girl a backstage pass. So yeah, when you have the give Bernard Bokenyi that totally tubular backstage pass. My friend in Cleveland, I have a lot of friends out in Cleveland and Ohio. I hope you all get well after the Guardians incident. And for that, I'm rooting for the Dodgers on your behalf just to get even with the Yankees. World Series is around. Luke is running back and forth to Owings Mills. I will be in Owings Mills giving away Raven scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery on Friday. We're going to be at Mama's on the half shell with my new friend, Finn McCusker. I knew his dad very well. I didn't know Finn until the Oyster Recovery Partnership last month. We're doing that on behalf of our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions and Curio Wellness. The new Oyster Tour category is out on the front of Baltimore Positive. We did 26 oysters in 26 days. Ray Bachman's oysters this week. I think it was day 7 down at Mike's in Riva. Ray is battling cancer. If you can afford to help him, it's in your heart to help him. He has a GoFundMe page out. And if nothing else, you can certainly send him some cheer and some love. He is alert and reading all my texts. The worst thing is he's battling this thing where, like, I can't make him laugh and I can't feed him food. So I feel so freaking helpless. So I'm going to be talking a lot about it around here this week because there's not much you can do. As my wife was a two-time survivor. So we're sending Ray good wishes. And I don't want to say anything funny in case he's watching because if I made him laugh, it would be painful for him. So I can laugh and you can laugh and we can laugh, but I can't make Ray laugh. And that's the worst thing in the world because our whole relationship was based on laughter. So no laughs for Ray Bachman. I'm going to purposely not be funny the rest of the month. That alone's funny. I'm Nestor. We are WNST AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore. We'll see you Friday at Mama's.